So, welcome everybody to this BJSS webinar, How to Overcome Your Fears to Become a Conference or Webinar Speaker, as part of Leeds Digital Festival. So for those of you who do not know BJSR, we are a technology consultancy who work collaboratively with our customers, helping them to deliver complex technology solutions used by millions of people every day. This session is being recorded and we do want you to ask as many questions as you want, using either the chat functionality or the Q&A section. Without further ado, over to our speaker for today, Antonio Cobo, who is a delivery manager at BJSS. Over to you, Antonio.
Thank you, Karen. Let me share my screen. Cool. Thank you, everybody, for being on this webinar. That it's quite important for me to be able to share that, and it's I would love to have that kind of talk before I started my journey as a conference speaker. So let's see what's this talk about. I'm going to share at the beginning with all of you all my fears about public speaking and all the reasons that I thought would stop me for being a conference speaker or to give a speech in public. After that, I'm going to explain how to get to speak at a conference, because another thing that I'm always worried is when I don't know how to do things. And when I decided that I wanted to try and to give talks at conferences, I need to know how to do it. And at the end, I'm going to finish with some tips for the conference day. So assuming you follow everything that I'm sharing with you today, hopefully you will get accepted and you will give a talk at a conference. Through the whole talk, when there is something more specific for a webinar, I'm going to explain it as well. Most of the time, all the advice that works for a conference also is the same for webinars, but there are others that are really different. It's not the same being in a room with 100 people that in a webinar that maybe you have the 100 people connected, but you don't see them, right? So let's see my fears. One of the first ones. I always thought that in order to give talks in conferences, you need to be an expert. The kind of expert, you know, that they know everything, that actually they can answer any question all the time. I realized after attending some conferences that one of the key things is actually people sharing the first steps, sharing how they fight with one good new technology, how they started to implement agile frameworks on a really old-time company, or how they fail doing things. None of those were actually experts, and they were sharing their lives. They were sharing their experience, right? I always realize this, the value of another experience is to give us hope, not to tell us exactly how or whether to proceed. Normally I don't put sentences or like this one, but for this talk, it really resonates with me, because I realized that I learned a lot the next day of a talk, once I'm processing the information from a talk. So the key thing is your mindset when you go to a conference is to learn. Something that I'm going to say today, or you hear from one speaker, you're going to have some idea the following day. And that is what I'm willing to share with everybody. Not exactly telling you how to do things, but hopefully you will realize how to start doing things. And of course, I'm not considering myself an expert. Far from that. I'm not able to answer a lot of questions when someone asks me directly really, really complicated questions, but I might be able to help people to think on a different way. And that's my aim giving talks. And that's the reason this is not a fear anymore for me, feeling or not feeling an expert. I'm afraid of public speaking. Even though it's more than 3 years now giving talks, I'm always nervous at the beginning. 5 minutes before the talk, I'm really nervous. When I put my mobile to check my stress level, it's really high, and you can feel my heartbeat, boom, 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 boom. So there are some techniques that I've learned. One that sometimes it helps a lot is the superhero pose or the winner pose. I know a lot of speakers that they do that before talks. It's like they put themselves on a pose like that, like a superhero in the movie, like I'm a winner, or they imagine themselves scoring the goal of the final on a World Cup. So you are, yeah. So if you have that feeling of being a winner, you're going to be more in the mood to actually speak, and it's going to help a lot. On conferences, one thing that I do is to try to find a face in the audience that is reacting with some kind of a smile. And that person that is projecting coolness and happiness, I usually check on those 2 or 3 faces during the whole talk. And it helped me to relieve and to be less nervous. I feel better and relaxed. It's like the anchor of my hope when I'm doing talks, right? Of course, on webinars, you don't have that. So things that I know that other speakers do, and sometimes I've done, they put on top of the screen a picture of their family or a picture of their kids. That is usually, it's a picture that is going to make you smile, right? So you saw the picture, you smile, and you calm down. Now, I'm also putting the webcam. On my first 2 webinars some time ago, I didn't put the webcam because I was afraid. And now I prefer to have the webcam because I use my face like a smile projector. So if I'm a little bit nervous, I look to the cam, breathe in, smile, and I can go. So try to do that, whether it's a picture of your kids or something that it makes you smile, or looking at yourself in the webcam. That is going to help you. I don't speak perfect English. You've noticed already, I hope. And I was always afraid of that people won't understand me when I'm speaking, especially on a stage with a microphone. And I was really worried about that. Then I realized that it's a motivation to try to get better. I'm trying to get my accent better, even though it's still too strong. It was really worse 3 years ago. I even had lessons to soften my accent because I wanted to become better every day. So my fear of not being able to speak perfect English, it was also motivation to become better. And then if you check the list of speakers on conferences, at least in Europe, and especially the technology conferences, around half of them, or even more, they are not actually native English speakers. They are from other countries, from Eastern Europe, France, Germany, Spain. All of them, they have accents. And even someone that is from a native English speaker country, it might be challenging for someone who is not to understand. So I understand sometimes easier people from Europe than people from UK, even though I live now in UK. So if they are able to give talks at conferences and they are not afraid, I can do it as well, right? So just try to think that you can be better every day, and every fear you have, try to use it in your advantage. Another fear that now I'm mastering a little bit better. I'm from Spain. we speak really fast in Spain. This is really, really the slowest path that I can speak. I realize that it's not that easy for someone to understand me when I'm speaking. So when I was on the softening accent lessons, they told me that the key to send message to someone else is imagine that you are feeding a baby. So each amount of information is 1 spoon of food, and you are giving to a baby 1 spoon, another, another, another. If you try to give a lot of spoons at once to the baby is going to all the food on you. If you try to give all the information at once, the attendants are not going to understand you. And that's the reason now I'm trying on talks or webinars and conferences to speak a little bit slower and to try to think about giving the information. That also coupled really well with the mentality of getting better every day, like the softening accent, like getting the accent a little bit better and speaking slower. I managed more or less to stop thinking about those fears. However, I have another fear that it was always a problem for me. I'm asthmatic. I was always worried that you could hear only my breathing. If I watch myself on a video of a talk, I can hear only my breathing and nothing else, because I'm so focused on that that it's stopping me to listen to anything else. I will probably answer all the questions at the end, or if there is one question that I can see that is relevant to the subject that I'm discussing, I will answer straight away. But don't worry, I will answer at the end of the talk, and if we don't have time, I will write some recap answering all the questions. Just, I'm not ignoring anybody. I will try to ask all the questions. So for being asthmatic, I don't know if any of you is asthmatic, but it's quite a limitation for me. And at my first conferences, I never said that. I never warned the audience that I was asthmatic. But I went one day to a conference in Tallinn, in Estonia, and this woman, Sharon Steed, she was the opening keynote. 400 developers. And she is heavy stutterer. She was stuttering all the time. And she was giving an amazing opening keynote about empathy and being empathetic, and how it's important to share your limitations with the audience to ensure that they can imagine how you feel. If they manage to feel the same way as you, it's not a limitation anymore, and they are not going to realize of that anymore. And when she was explaining that, after that moment that she explained about empathy and being empathetic and about sharing the feelings, I stopped realizing that she was stuttering. So I try to do the same on my talks. Being asthmatic, it means I have an inhaler with me all the time. I have problems breathing. So in order for you to imagine how I feel, I'm going to put you in a situation. You go 5 floors of the stairs going up with a suitcase of 10, 15 kilos. You go 1 floor, the second, the third, 5 floors like that. That feeling when you arrive on the last floor, I have it all the time without having the suitcase. That's how I breathe all the time. And that's the issue that I could have. Now, you can more or less feel how it is. But it's not a problem for me to share that I'm asthmatic, and I'm making jokes all the time. I was project manager before, and people think when I'm breathing like that I'm like, I don't know, like this one, right? Like Darth Vader. Each time that I've made this talk before, after the joke of Darth Vader and after explaining the 5 floors with a suitcase, I have feedback from the audience saying that from that moment, they started to understand me better, they didn't realize of my accent, and they didn't realize of my breathing. So please let me know then if it's working or not. If you have a limitation like asthma or any other things, don't hide it to the audience. Share it. Make the audience to feel how is your day-to-day life. And it's going to be better. Those are my fears. So now it's how I get to speak at conferences. Oops. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry about that. I click where I shouldn't click. I'm really sorry that it happened. Where is my share screen? That can happen when you give a talk that things don't go as you expect. It's okay. It happened to a lot of people. More than 3 years and it still happens to me. Just smile and go on. Don't worry about that. You're already giving the talk. So technical problems can happen all the time. It happened once on a conference. My whole laptop died 5 minutes before my talk. And I managed to give the talk with the slides and everything. It was stressful, but it's okay. So don't be worried about having technical issues. So program committees, they have a really hard job to select talks. This is data from last year. CodeMotion Madrid, they had 70 available slots, and they had more than 850 submissions. That's a lot of propositions for only 70 slots. Krakow, DevConf, similar, 351 submissions, 32 slots. DevOps Days Stockholm, only 9 slots, 170. Same for Spark the Change, same for CraftConf. Do you know why I know these numbers? Because I got rejected on all of those. And it's not a problem. You are going to have rejections quite often because they have a lot of good submissions. They can have really, really good talks of other speakers that they fit better on their program. Just for you to know sometimes how complicated it could be. What do you need to submit? So depending on the conference, sometimes it's different. The common ground is you need a title, a description for your conference, for your talk, and some information about yourself. So a little paragraph about yourself, who are you, Twitter, LinkedIn, usual stuff, right? And that it's the minimum information you need to share. The submission, depending on the conference, some conferences, they're gonna have what is called a blind process. So they're gonna get only the title and descriptions. They're gonna remove any possible information that could reveal who you are. And the program committee, they're going to check title and descriptions without knowing the authors. However, sometimes they ask you to add a couple of videos of your talks, or they tell you it's blind process, the first 2 steps, and once we are on the last steps or deciding the final program, we will check the speaker's experience. Key thing when you submit a paper to a conference, choose your subject. Keep it relevant to the conference. If you have an amazing talk about JavaScript, don't send it to a conference that is for Python's developers, right? Catchy title and description. For a program committee, it's really complicated to do a good program. You need to sell your talk with a title and description. You need to make the program committee, the ones that are creating the program of the conference, thinking that that title and description, both, they are going to motivate someone to attend the conference. Because they need to market the conference, to ensure that they do marketing campaigns, publicity, and that they get attendance to go to your talk and to the conference, right? It's really, really important. It's a long process, especially to get accepted on the first one. So don't give up. You need to follow your instinct and to keep going. The most complicated one is the first talk. Once you get accepted on the first conference, it's easier. So I'm going to share with you my process of submitting conferences, or how I did in the past with all my talks, right? The first thing, why you want to speak at conferences or to give webinars. So you need to define some goals. There are some people that they have on their role title advocate, evangelist, and things like that. Their goal is actually their job. Their job is to give talks to show how amazing the product of the company is, how amazing is the way that they work at the company in order to attract people. There are some independent contractors that they use conferences to put themselves on the market and to get new clients. There are some people, like me, that my main thing is to share experience, because I have learned a lot from other meetups and other conferences. So it's a little bit unfair for me that I'm learning from others and I'm not sharing experience. And of course, maybe if one of you finally say, oh, the talk was cool, let's check out the website where he works. That is a plus that is always good. Once you have your talk idea, you approach conferences, you practice, you need to build a brand. It's marketing. Conference speaking is marketing, and you need to develop your network. So I'm going to explain a little bit each of them in deeper, right? Once you establish your first goal and you decide why you want to give talks, because maybe you have discovered a new way of developing mobile apps, I don't know. Once you find your goal, first, small meetups, small conferences. I remember my first year, I thought, if I managed to get accepted at one conference and one meetup in London, that would be amazing. That was my thing. Then I realized that there are some conferences that there are less people submitting talks. In Eastern European Conference, they even half better the speakers, because not all the conferences are going to cover your travel or your accommodation. Some they do, some don't. In Eastern Europe, they're really happy when they bring speakers from other countries, and I found that they were easier to feel how cool it is to be in a conference. So when I started, I managed to get a couple of meetups in London because I knew the organizers and I was attending the meetup. And I started attending as a speaker conferences in Lithuania, Ukraine, because my goal for the second year, it was to be accepted in UK. The issue with UK, especially in London, the venues are really, really expensive. So the conference organizers, they need to be sure that people are going to attend the conference. If you don't have experience as a conference speaker, it's going to be more complicated. It's good to submit ideas every year, because sometimes they are not going to consider your name if you haven't submitted before. I managed to speak once in New York. And actually, when I was submitting that year, I was thinking, I'm going to start submitting this year to be able to give a talk the next year. I submitted for a conference in San Francisco. They say, oh, your talk is not on our program, but we like your concept. Could you please submit to this conference in New York that we have in some months? Of course, I thought that it was the typical, please submit, and then we might be able to discuss with you. Okay, I submitted, and actually they accepted my talk in New York. which was a surprise. So sometimes you need to target conferences of big groups of conferences in order to be able to be in one of the cities. You start submitting for all, you start submitting 1 year to be the following year accepted. Your talk idea. It's key when you're creating a new talk. So the 4 types of talks that I've heard a lot on conferences, on case studies, tech explorations, theme with architectures, containers, strategy, empathy, and some about leadership. So if you have a case study that how you move from a monolith to microservices, that was a good kind of talk a couple of years ago. Now probably it's a little bit late to that kind of talk, but it's how we managed to move from one cloud vendor to a different one. Maybe it's a good case study to show to others. Or if there is a new tech that just appeared, it's how I fight like a noob with this technology. Those kind of talks are usually accepted on conferences if there is not a lot of propositions with that. How I do the creation of talks. I brainstorm all the ideas or crazy ideas that I have during any day. I note down anything about Scrum Mastering, Agile coaching, technical debt, anything. I note down every idea. And sometimes when I'm on a conference and I'm discussing with attendants on the coffee break, they have the need of some talks that they don't find. And that's the reason I created this one. After 3 talks, people asking, oh, how do you manage to speak at conferences? How do you create talks? Or how do you manage to be speaking? Because I'm afraid of public speaking. So I created this talk. You need to look for similar talks. Once you have some 2 or 3 ideas, it could be that a lot of people are talking about the same. Then you need to find out why your talk would be different and why your talk would be more interesting for the program committee or others. If everybody is talking about blockchain and you want to do a talk about blockchain, why your talk is different? Why your talk is going to be better than others, right? It may be that no one is giving talks about the idea you have. Then check with your colleagues in the office. Ask them whether it's something interesting, whether it's something that would motivate them to go to a conference, right? Refine the list of ideas till you have one. And once you have one, you can start working on that. So the key thing, catchy title and description. So I have one talk that I did in the past. The first time that I was submitting that talk, it was project management and DevOps. I was never accepted. After discussion with someone from the program committee, I changed a little bit the talk, and the name was Project Management from the Stone Age to DevOps. It was essentially the same talk, but I was using some parallelism with the history, Agile, Renaissance, DevOps, Stone Age, Waterfall, and that talk was accepted 8 times because the title and the description motivated more the program committee. It was something different. You need to do the same. If you're doing a talk about blockchain and you say, how I learned blockchain, maybe it's not a catchy title. You need to do something different. You have to think, if you're an attendant of a conference, could you go to that title and description? Could you attend that talk? Once you're getting the title and the description, request feedback from colleagues. So once I have a new idea with the description, I'm asking all the time my colleagues, even when I'm client side, I'm discussing with the client, would you go to this talk? It's something interesting. I also check with them whether my English is okay. Because and once you have a lot of people saying, oh, that should be interesting, then you have it. You have your title and description. And it's really, really important, the title and description. You may have the whole talk with all the slides that are perfect, beautiful, amazing. If your title and description are not good, your talk is not going to appear on any conference. It's your selling point. Once you have that, you submit to conferences. The earlier, the better. Some conferences, they have the schedule. So they say, we open the call for papers on that day. We decide on that day. We send notifications to speaker on this day. Others that say that we are open to applications, and as soon as we like it, we accept the talk. So on those conferences, if you submit really, really early, you can even get feedback from the program committee. Don't give up. It's complicated at the beginning, but it's good. You will get there. Practice. You need to practice your speech out loud. Everybody is an amazing speaker in our minds. When you are rehearsal for yourself without talking, the talk is beautiful, all the timing is great, and you say, oh, this talk is great, right? So try the same recording yourself with a video, or only the voice with a mobile, and watch or listen to the recording after. Spoiler, you're gonna hate yourself quite a lot. And that's one reason for that. You are the only one who knows exactly the message you want to send. You are the only one who knows exactly how the talk should be. The good thing for you, your attendants, they don't know. For your attendants, the final talk, the talk as it should be, is what they are getting right now. So that's the reason you need to relax and practice. You will notice some mistakes that you could do if you record yourself. I don't know if I'm doing it too much on this talk or not. But if you record yourself, you could realize if you are saying, and then you can try to correct yourself. It's going to require some effort at the beginning, but then you won't say anymore because it's natural for you. Stop saying that. You need to practice in front of friendly audience. So in your company, with your friends, try to do sessions at lunchtime and share with them. Ask for feedback. They can be a little bit harsh, but sometimes it's good because you know exactly what to improve after that, right? Don't be afraid to practice with people. You can even practice with a couple of people that you don't know a lot. Try to say, anybody want to have, I don't know, a talk, a rehearsal of a talk that I'm preparing? And you can have with 2 or 3 completely random people, and it works, right? Don't be afraid to practice. If you don't practice, you are gonna be even more nervous the day of the conference, and you're going to block, okay? One of the key things, if you get blocked during the talk one day, don't worry. It's not a problem. Have you ever been on a conference with someone that is really famous for giving talks, that is making a pause, like some moment that is looking like that, making interesting silence? It's wonderful, right? You say, wow, it's stopping and it's creating some kind of momentum that is great for the talk. Half of the speakers, they are doing that because they just forgot what to say. But they don't show it to the audience. They just put the face of, I'm interested, you know, the phrase that I've just shared with you is important. Think about it. Okay, this is what I wanted to say. And then continue. So practice. You can even practice that kind of things when you get completely white blank in your mind, right? You build a brand, and that's key thing. Conference speaking sometimes is about marketing. The conferences they need to sell tickets. They need to ensure that they have people attending. They need to ensure that with the speakers that they're having and with attenders that they have, they can have sponsors to actually sponsor the conference. So when they are going to check your submission, they're going to check if you have a Twitter account, what are the things that you're sharing, if you have some tweets about your talks, if you have ever written anything, any blog about the subject of your talk. So try to do that. Try to do write a couple of blogs about the subject that you decide. Tweet about the subject, follow some speakers, follow some conferences. If you ever give a talk, share the slides after the talk. It's a good way to get more people checking the slides, right? Share the videos of your talks. There's a caveat, and I have a funny story to share. I was in a conference in Riga 2 years ago, I think, or 3. I gave a talk, and after the talk, one speaker that it was famous for giving talks, he said, "Oh, I really enjoyed your talk. It was really you sharing it. It was really, really good talk." You, "Oh, thank you very much." And then he said, "It's your first time in Riga?" And I said, yeah, it's my first time here." "Oh, you know, among all the countries and cities here, you should go to Tallinn. Tallinn is the most beautiful city here." I said, "What? Why that person is telling me about Tallinn that is in Estonia when we are in Latvia, in Riga?" I was thinking, I don't know. When I came back home, a couple of days later, I said, something, that means something. So I started looking for conferences in Tallinn. And I realized that I found one, that the next month, it was a conference in Tallinn, and they had 2 slots available for speaking. I checked the program committee. On our surprise, that speaker was one member of the program committee. So I submit. I sent my talk, and straight away, 1 minute after, got a message on LinkedIn from him. "Oh, I'm really happy that you submitted the talk. I cannot promise you will be accepted, but I'm gonna share how I like your talk with the rest of the program committee. And by the way, I have to say sorry to you because you submitted to another conference last year, and I was the one saying no, because the video that you shared, I didn't like it at all." And I explained to him, well, it was my first time ever giving a conference talk, and the only video that I had, because the other conferences, they didn't record my talks. And say, "Oh, I understand. Don't send any video ever again to any conference because it's really bad. So if you have a video of your talk and you are relatively happy with it, share it. If you're not happy, don't share it, right?" Then you need to develop your network. It's important to realize that in LinkedIn or Twitter, there are a lot of speakers, a lot of conference organizers. Follow some of them, interact from time to time with any of them, and to ensure that they know your name. Don't harass them, but you can do one tweet from time to time to any of them. And sometimes, if you follow someone from a long time, you can even get one of the conference organizers or one of the speakers as a mentor. So if any of you is thinking about giving talks, you can contact me. I'm happy to review titles and description of talks and to give advice. And why it's important to develop your network? Because it's going to help a little bit of marketing for yourself, right? So I have another example. This is from last year. In February, the call for papers for HipCon in Belgrade in Serbia was open, and I decided to submit a couple of talks. Then I tweet, "Never been to Serbia." So that's the reason I'm submitting 2 talks to HipCon. They answered, so they interacted with me, And I could see that that account, HipCon, they checked my profile. And someone from Serbia checked my LinkedIn profile the same day. A couple of months later, I got an email and I was accepted to give this talk actually there. So you need to share and to contact others. It's going to help you a lot. So Antonio, that's really cool. We know how to create the talks now. We know the conferences. Where do I submit my papers, right? There are several websites for different groups of conferences. There is one, this paper call is an aggregator of conferences. They are not all there, but you can actually check a lot of conferences there. You can create your talks there and then use the same talk to submit to different conferences. So that helped me to learn more about different conferences around the world. I check it from time to time to submit my talks. And it's a good way to know the conferences. The CodeMotion group, they have a specific website for that. That's the link. I will share the slides later today. So don't worry, on my Twitter. So you can get the links. DevOps Days, they have conferences around the world. That's the link. But the key thing at the end, just try to find them on Twitter, the conference you're interested, whether it's a big group like the Box Days, Agile Tour, Agile in the City. Look for them on Twitter, follow them, and usually they announce when the call for papers is open, right? So imagine you do that and you got accepted. You are gonna give a talk the conference day. So some tips for the conference day and before that. Of course, you need to finish your talk. And people can laugh, but sometimes if you are just submitting the talks and the description, if you don't have any conferences accepting that title and description, maybe you don't need to create the whole talk. If you are accepted, create the talk at least. Practice several times. You can practice 2 months before, give feedback, modify, and create it, right? Till the moment that you are more or less happy. I have some speakers that I know, they practice in front of their partners, even though in my case, if I do that, my wife is not from technology background, so she's not going to understand exactly what I'm explaining, but she can give me feedback about how I'm sharing it. So on the day of the conference, bring your own clicker. Usually in webinars, I don't use it because you have your laptop and I'm not using clicker. But in conferences, it's really, really complicated to get used to a different clicker. And you can have the issue that I have today, that I was advancing more or going backwards too often because I didn't know the clicker. If you have a MacBook or an Apple, bring your own display adapter. Not all the conferences, they have adapters for Mac, and it could be a problem. Check the conference room in advance. If your talk is not the first one of the day in that room, go to the first talk there, get used to the size of the room, listen to the previous speaker. If there is any technical issue between the talks, try to go to the stage and look. Try to check if there is light that is too strong or not. Get familiar with the room. Don't target everybody on the audience. Not everybody is going to like your talk. So don't try to be liked by everybody. For me on my talks, I only hope that someone is going to have a nice idea the following day with my talks. I'm not targeting everybody in the talk to have that idea the next day. Not having questions is okay. It doesn't mean that they don't like your talk. It's only that maybe they're afraid of public speaking. So if you're afraid of giving talks, you're afraid of asking questions, right? when people are mobiles on laptops, that doesn't mean that they are not listening to you. They might be checking your Twitter. They might be checking your LinkedIn. Or maybe they are actually doing something else, but it's their time. As you are not targeting the whole audience, if some people are actually checking mobiles and laptop, it's their choice. Don't focus on them, focus on the ones that are actually answering. Breathe. Especially if you're asthmatic, remember, breathe. And smile. You got there, you got to the conference. So all of these is more or less similar for webinars. So you don't need to bring your own display adapter because you have your laptop, right? And sometimes you don't need the clicker, but you need to check that the connections are okay, that you don't have Slack activated and things like that, because it might happen. You don't target everybody on the webinar. It's okay if no one asks questions, right? So that's more or less all my tips on the conference day. And I think we have time to check questions. So let me see if I can check it. Where is the Q&A here? I'm gonna stop sharing and I should be able to. Okay, so I'm gonna try to check the questions now. So do you have a checklist for yourself of things you do before going to speak at an event? Most of the time, as I need to travel, I ensure that on my backpack, I have my laptop, my connections, and also whether I have the adapters or clickers and things like that. That's the minimum. Of course, clothes and things like that, but ensuring that I have with me all the time the laptop. Things to do before, I check other speakers. I check if someone is giving a talk similar on the same conference, and I check if it's similar. Then I try to attend that talk, and I try to add something of that talk on mine. So like that, I can say on one of the talks, or like Sven was saying yesterday, one of the key things is actually to, about Teams, is to apply this or this. So I think that is also a good thing. And that's the way on the checklist. It's always good to share things, and it shows to the program committee that you are there also because you want to enjoy the conferences, right? Do you practice your talk of the day as well? It depends on the talk, the conference, and the schedule. If my talk is scheduled in the afternoon and it's maybe a new talk that I haven't given a lot of time before or several times before, then sometimes I take a break and I practice the talk if I can out of loud and in the other room. If it's a talk that I've already given 6 or 7 times, I don't practice on the same day. I try to enjoy more the conference because actually that relaxes me more. Do you think speaking is something limited to people with a lot of experience in the industry? Any advice for people earlier in their careers? So it's not limited. And actually, I've attended a lot of talks of people that they was freshly graduated, and we talk about how they discovered how to use Neo4j without any knowledge from university. And it was quite interesting from the perspective of a junior developer. A lot of people trying to use new technology and failing. They don't have a lot of experience in the industry sometimes. I also attended different talks of Scrum Masters that they were chosen on their companies because no one else was able. So it was my first year as a Scrum Master. So they don't have a lot of experience, but they are sharing it. So it was quite interesting. Let me drink a little bit more water.
It's just nice to see, Antonio, so many positive comments that are coming through. You know, we've spoken many times how tough it is speaking in public, whether you're on a webinar or in front of an audience. So, you know, thank you so much for hosting this session as well.
Yeah, no, it's a, and at the end, focus on both feedback, the feedback that is to improve, and sometimes some nice messages of people saying, oh, it was nice, or there's some comment saying that my accent was okay. So thank you very much. Because it's complicated, especially I have lived 9 years in France as well. So sometimes I made even grammar mistakes because I'm mixing Spanish, French, and English, and it's a mix of everything. So more tips to lower the nerves before doing public speaking. In some conferences, it helped me to actually listen to music. I was putting the headphones, any music. It must be a music that you love, that it makes you even moving a little bit. So sometimes if I'm before my talk 1 hour before and I'm a little bit nervous, I put that. I don't talk to anybody, but I'm relaxing like that. You just focus on the music and it relaxes. Breathing is important. So one of the key things when you're asthmatic is to control the way that you breathe. So if you are too nervous at the beginning, just deep breathe. It seems quite a stupid idea, but it helps because it's going to calm you. The thing about the superheroes and or the winner, I've even done that in the middle of the talks. On one of my talks, I was explaining, they say that you can do a superhero like that, it's going to calm everybody. So we're going to do differently. And I then asked the whole audience to stand up and to do a superhero pose. And we're all like that, woo! And it was a couple of nice pictures in Sheffield, on Agile Sheffield, with everybody doing the superhero pose. When you do something like that, everybody's going to smile. You're going to be a little bit less nervous, and you're going to be, oh, I can do it, right? There's another question. Why do you like to do talks? What do you get out of it personally? Actually, it's a good balance of sending out energy and receiving energy. I'm learning a lot about different cultures, about different ways of people working in different countries. So it makes you value to put value on a lot of different things that maybe you weren't putting value before. I think it makes me also more empathetic with others. I'm trying to give conferences, and sometimes it's a continuous improvement mentality. I want to be a better person than I was yesterday. The fact that I'm giving talks, it's forcing myself to be out of my comfort zone, to fight against my fears. I'm the youngest of 7 siblings, and I was always a little bit, you're the smallest, and everybody can hit you quickly. So I was a little bit of, I don't know, so a little bit shy, even though I'm always making jokes. It helps me a lot. When you give talks at conferences and you're a little bit introvert, it's easier to interact with people because you don't need to go to them to actually say anything. They're going to come to you to say something about the talk. So it's ideal when you're introvert. Someone is coming to you, asking about the subject that already you know enough to answer. So it's going to relax you and you can interact with people. That kind of a thing is what I get from giving talks and why I like it. And traveling, I've been to Tallinn, Riga, Kiev, Vilnius, Berlin, New York, Sheffield, Manchester, I don't know, a lot of cities. Some of them probably I would never go there without a conference. Is the key to high engagement from the audience using interactive elements? It depends on the audience, and it depends on where are you giving the talks. In some countries, they don't like to interact at all. If you're asking, the only one who is going to answer you is another speaker that actually knows you and realize that no one is answering. So in other countries, they like the interaction. Sometimes depending on the subject of the conferences, some conferences about Agile, people are a little bit more willing to discuss. Some deep technology conference, in some countries, they don't talk at all. The same talk is, it might work here, but maybe it wouldn't work somewhere else. So I'm still working on it after more than 3 years, whether I need to try to ask the audience to engage more or less. We'll see. Maybe you will help me as well as an attendant, what you prefer. What do you do if someone asks you a question that you do not have an answer to? That's easy. It's actually, I don't know. And it's okay not to know things. It's a really good answer. I cannot give you a proper answer. It's a really good question, but I don't have an answer. I'm going to try to look for it. And if I find an answer, I will try to share it later on Twitter. And if not, I will share on Twitter that someone asked me this and I don't know what to answer. Maybe someone from Twitter will answer. The key thing for me is accept the things that I know and accept the things that I don't know. Another question in the Q&A. In regards to content, what tips do you have on making sure it's engaging? Well, I think that the key thing is, if you practice and you saw it with a lot of people, they can tell you whether it's interesting or not. I'm not really good doing nice presentations. Actually, today's one is better than the previous time that I did that, because someone from marketing reviewed one of my other talks last week, and I realized that the way that I was doing it was a little bit not ideal. But the key thing is you are sharing the content. Whether it's nice and beautiful, it doesn't matter if you're not able to share why it's important for you on the content. And of course, on the process of refine, it's important that is quite a good idea of the top. That's the reason you ask other colleagues and you ask other people whether it's interesting or not. I think we have a lot of comments on the chat, but probably we don't have a lot of time now to answer more questions. I will answer those later on Twitter this week.
Yeah, and thanks very much for that, Antonio. So we will be able to follow up to everything that was sent through either on the Q&A or the chat functionality. And I think it was great to see Antonio's passion and, delivering something. And I think that the slide that resonated with me the most about empathy and being empathetic, because I think that should be across all walks of life and how we should treat our colleagues, our friends, anybody that you come across, really, because the reality is, especially when you're presenting, things do go wrong. It could be technical, that's the way it is. It's just, it's about how you can be calm and deal with it. And so thank you so much for sharing some insights today, Antonio. And, it was nice to see Semilian Pavlov, who's in the audience. He's actually got a session this afternoon at 4:30 on imposter syndrome. Which,
and I will be attending.
Yeah, we've only got a few tickets left for that one. And I think because we've had such a big interest, we probably will run these sessions again. So, yeah, I hope you all enjoy the rest of the festival. We have got another 7 events running this week, so do check us out on bjss.com/Leeds. Follow us on Twitter and on LinkedIn, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.